the sense of achievement that I got crossing that line was, yeah, it was incredible. So welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all getting prepared for Christmas and your training is going well. So this year I've been lucky enough to race distances from 1500 meters all the way up to 50-kilometer ultra marathons. So yeah, I'm going to go through my top 3, share with you a bit of a race recap on the event, and then I'm going to share with you the key lessons I've learned from those events. I would love to hear in the comments what your favourite race of 2021 was. Let me know what distance and the reason why, as well as the key lessons you learnt from it. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool to see how people got on this year in the community that we're building here on YouTube. So yeah, without further ado, my number 3, so my third best race of the year from my point of view was a 3,000 meters track race with the Southern Athletics League, where I ended up coming first, and yeah, basically executed the dream race in terms of pacing and performance on the day. This race was back in September. The gun went off and I sort of settled into a pace with the aim of breaking the 9-minute barrier for the 3k, so that's 3 minutes per kilometre times by 3, and I think it's 7.5 laps if I remember rightly. So the gun went off and immediately I found myself in 3rd position. I didn't panic, I just stuck to the plan, and I was wearing my watch at the time, and I lapped manually the first kilometre. I remember this is the first time I've tried manually lapping my watch on a track, because I don't know about you, but when I run on track it says I've run a lot further than I actually have. I think it's about almost like 50 meters a lap, so yeah, it can be really confusing in terms of pacing. But anyway, found myself in 3rd, quickly moved into 2nd place, and the guy who actually is now in my club, Chelmsford, his name's Zach, he sort of got a lead on the rest of the group of around 50 meters. And for the first K, I pressed my watch, and I think it was around 3 minutes and 2 seconds for the first kilometre, so I knew that I had to pick up the pace a little bit. Gradually, as the race went on, I felt stronger and stronger, having started off a little bit, not slowly, but I knew I had to pick up the pace, and I gradually basically reeled Zach in, and then we had like a last lap shootout, which I ended up winning. So yeah, basically in the race, I found myself sort of in 2nd place, but quite distant to the guy in 1st, but I carried on, stuck to my pace, and ended up finishing the race in 8 minutes and 55 seconds. I think my last kilometre was 2 minutes 50. It was one of my favourite races of the year. I put it in 3rd place, above quite a lot of other races, such as like my Chelmsford 10k track victory and the Billericay 10k. I just found that this race went perfectly in terms of pacing, and I stayed true to my game plan and didn't really like follow anyone else's, and I raced the race to my own ability, and yeah, it went perfectly, and I was really proud of how it went. So yeah, there's some of the lessons I learned from that race. Basically, to pace yourself really well, to run your own race, and yeah, to finish strong, because it felt amazing at the time. On to my second favourite race of the year, which was the Chelmsford Half Marathon. Now this race came at a pretty significant point of the year. So I quit my job as a chef at the very end of September, and the Chelmsford Half Marathon was on one of the first few days in October. So I think I'd done my last shift on the Friday as a chef, and then on the Saturday I raced the Chelmsford Half Marathon. Now the time wasn't anywhere near what I was going for. I was about 4 minutes off my time goal on the day. I finished in 74 minutes. So an hour and 14 minutes for the half marathon, which still is an incredible time. I was aiming for that sub 70, and I only really was able to hold that pace for the first 5k. But what made this race so special is, yeah, having quit my job to then line up on a start line, my first ever mass participation race. I think there was about 2,000 or 3,000 people there on the day, but it felt like a lot more. I've never done any of these like big city marathons or anything like that, so to be on the start line with like what felt like 10,000 people behind you was pretty incredible. The race went pretty well. I started off at 3:19s per kilometre for the first 5k, which is my target pace, with the aim of running 70 minutes, and I was sort of on my own from the gun, which is quite unusual. But yeah, I absolutely loved the race. I slowed down a little bit towards the end, well, quite a lot actually. I think my last few kilometres are around the 3:40 pace, and having set off at 3:20, that's quite a significant drop in pace. But on the day I was just like really enjoying it. I was following the lead bike and Tesla, and yeah, basically running on my own for the whole half marathon. Really good crowds. Yeah, felt like an elite runner at the time, and yeah, picked up this awesome medal from the Chelmsford Half Marathon. Hopefully I'll give it a go again next year, see if I can maybe retain that first place, but I've got a funny feeling that a lot faster guys will go, but maybe I'll be even faster, so we never know. The key lessons I learnt from that day, the first was the importance of having a group. So I really I didn't struggle towards the end, but in terms of my motivation to like keep pushing on, it wasn't really there. I was out in the lead. I had a good sort of 2 or 3 minutes on anyone else on the day. So the need to push on wasn't really there, and the crowds are great, so I just sort of enjoyed the race. But yeah, it taught me the importance of finding a group, especially for that half marathon distance. It's a lot easier to stick to a pace when you've got a group of guys that are running to that pace. Yeah, that definitely taught me that if I want to run even faster or run to my potential, so that 70-minute goal that I've got, I need to have a group of guys around me. And also learn from that race to have fun, to enjoy it. You train really hard for these races, and yes, the pace wasn't at the optimal or the goal pace on the day, but I absolutely loved the last 10k, enjoyed the crowds, the finish line, the celebrations, had all my family there. So yeah, it was a really nice race, and yeah, my second favourite of the year. So moving on to my top spot, my favourite race of the year, if you like, was the Stour Valley 50k. It's the furthest I've ever run. I've never done a 50-kilometre ultra marathon before, but it was something I wanted to test my body, test what my mind was capable of, and I put in a really good period of training around my first ever 100-mile week in the build up to this race. In terms of how the race went, despite it being my favourite, it probably was my most unsuccessful race of the year at the same time in terms of execution. The goal was to run under 4 hours for a 50-kilometre race, which I now looking back at, it was a really, really high goal, especially for my first ever ultra. It was a bit naive of me, but I believed in the training. I believed that I could run that sort of pace for that sort of distance. On the day, I started running with my friend Tom, who was my teammate at the time at Colchester Harriers, and I think we ran the first maybe 5-10k together, just cruising along, ticking along at around 4:30 kilometres, which was a good pace. I think I needed to, I think that was around the pace that I needed to maintain to break that 4 hour cut-off time, and if I had have kept that pace, I probably would have ended up coming in the top 3 on the day. But anyway, as we got to, I think it was around the 8-kilometre mark, a guy past me. What was his name? And I remember thinking at the time, when he went past me, I've put all these months of training in, there's no need to like play it conservative, just roll the dice, basically see what I've got in the tank, see if I can keep up with this guy who I knew was going to be a contender for the first place. I think he ended up coming second on the day. It was during the COVID time, so nobody really knew where they were on the course, because we all started in staggered across like a 2-hour period, so nobody really knew if you were in first, second, third along the way. But when he came past me, I made the decision to go with him. It turns out that was probably a little bit too quick. I also had some quite bad stomach cramps on the day. After 20 kilometres, I think just the gels just didn't sit in my stomach, and I was having some really sharp stabbing pains that made me keel over at points, and I had to sort of operate a run-walk process to try and get the race done, and basically didn't go very well after that 20k, having set off a little bit too quickly and not practiced my nutrition enough in the lead up to the race. And it was a really, really hot day. But anyway, not making excuses, the race didn't go very well. I managed to get myself to the 40-kilometre checkpoint, which is the last checkpoint point before the line, and I was absolutely devastated. If you've not seen the vlog, I'd highly recommend watching that one. I think it's probably one of the best pieces of content I've put on the platform. My first ever ultra marathon. The thought of putting all that, the months, the hours and the kilometres into training for it not to go well on the day was really devastating, and I did get a little bit emotional, and it still hurts now. I've got the t-shirt on from the event, the Stour Valley Path, but the reason it was my favourite race of the year is just I learned so much about myself on the day. I got to the 40k point, by the way, and I wanted to quit. I walked in, I remember seeing all my family, Meg's family, all the volunteers were there, and I was done. I was calling it there. My body, I was getting some chest pains. My body was basically telling me to stop. I'd given up, having set off a bit too quick. I remember sitting in a chair with family around me, and they knew to give me a little bit of space because they could tell I was emotional. And I remember one of the volunteers was like, "You can't quit here, like you're too close to the finish." And that really stuck with me. I was like, maybe I'll just sit here for a second. I had some watermelons, some crisps, some Haribos, some encouragement from my girlfriend and my family, especially my sister. She was incredible on the day. Ended up walking the last 10k with me because I couldn't run, basically. and she offered to keep me company for the last 10k of the 50k course. So I'm forever thankful for my family on the day. They really helped like bring me up again and push me onto that finished place, and I'm so proud of finishing that race, and that's probably why it became my top race of the year. And I would highly recommend anyone to do a ultra marathon. The sense of achievement that I got crossing that line was, yeah, it was incredible. And all these sort of like 5k, 10k, even half marathon distances, they didn't for me have that same sort of like sense of achievement, of overcoming the adversity, of finding out what your body is really capable of. So a few other things I learned on the day from that race is to not change anything in my race preparation. So I remember at the start of the 50k, I decided to have a gel. I never normally would have a gel before a race, and immediately it didn't sit well in my stomach, and I could even feel it before we even started the race. So God knows why I did that. So something I took away from that race is to not change anything in your usual preparation. So for example, if you usually have one bowl of porridge before you're going out on your long run, then stick to one bowl. Don't feel the need to have two or add a gel in there for no reason, when your body's not used to that and it hasn't trained to that stimulus before. Some days you have absolutely great days, your body feels great, everything goes to plan for you, and other days you don't. But yeah, there's some of the key lessons I've learned from my races this year. Hopefully you can take away some of the lessons that I've learned in terms of the races that went well and the races that didn't go so well. And it just goes to show that it's not necessarily the PBs and the winning of races that really motivate me as a runner, and should motivate you. Like finding out what your body is capable of over like a 50k distance, yeah, was a real experience that will stick with me for forever. And I'm 100% going to be doing the Stour Valley Path 50k next year. The sense of achievement that I had from that race was, yeah, it was phenomenal, and I would highly recommend it to anyone else. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. A bit more of like a story time. I've got my penultimate race of the year tomorrow, which is a cross-country race. The Essex League, I think it's the third meet, but it's only the second cross-country race I'll have done. I came fourth in the last one, so I'm hoping to do as well, if not better, maybe make the podium tomorrow at Braintree and Great Notley Park. So that'll be the next video on the channel. But until then, aspire to run and run to inspire, and we'll see you with another race day vlog shortly. Thank you very much.